Hi guys, Chris from the Ultimate Recycler. Today's video is for the e-waste scrappers. Just a bit of information that I'd like to share with when I'm scrapping e-waste. Here's a basic old microwave I've just about to scrap. Now you'd all be pretty much aware that microwaves are okay in that you've got one large power transformer. There's a bit of copper in the magnetron, but you've got to be careful with that, and I'll touch on that in a future video. There's a bit of a wiring loom. There's the mains cord, there's a fan motor. So they're your basic value items for scrap. There's a low grade circuit board there behind the display. So a lot of scrappers would just rip those things out, and the case just then would go off to the scrapyard as light gauge pressing steel. But I'm here to show you, or at least explain, where I get a bit of extra value and a lot of scrappers probably overlook, and that's in what you take off the microwave. Here's a tub of just general screws that I've come out of the last few things I've been scrapping. But whether you're scrapping PCs or DVDs or any electronic items, save your screws, save your springs, larger nuts and bolts, and electrical connections, anything that's possibly usable, and you'll find you're getting a lot more value. They're fuse holders. You get a lot more value as things add up than what you'd think. Now, admittedly, it's easy for me to sell this sort of stuff because I've got a second-hand shop. But if you fill up jars like this from everything you scrap, I don't even really sort them. I've just got assorted hardware, all small gauge screws, nuts, washers, wing nuts. This one's much the same. A lot of self-tappers. But look, these are all coffee jars, $5 per jar. Larger nuts and bolts I put in another jar. They're probably more suitable for farmers and engineers, mechanics. These jars sell to hobbyists. Anyone that just wants an assortment of hardware in their shed, you only have to go to Bunnings or a big hardware store, and you know they've got little packets, and they're quite expensive to buy, screws, and quite often you're just buying one size. This gives someone an assortment of all sorts of sizes. This one's actually wood screws. Obviously they don't come out of microwaves, but I've just thrown them in a jar. The front one here, fuse holders and fuses. This one I showed you just before, electrical connections. Just about everything you scrap, heaters, all sorts of stuff. Where the mains cord goes in, they use a connector block. And I sell those. I'd get $5 for a jar full of those. This little jar here has got 10 little micro switches in it, and you get lots of those out of microwaves. Quite handy for home inventors or hobbyists. You know, they'll buy them. The top jar up here, I've actually been throwing old cogs and sprockets and things from clockwork items that I've scrapped. And not that I expect that someone's going to use them individually, but they're going to have a market for someone that just likes quirky things. They might be into craft work. You never quite know why someone buys something. And look, all these jars I've got $5 each on. $5 these days is a coffee. So it's actually quite easy to sell these items. And even if you only get a couple of dollars worth, a couple of dollars per jar, you're much better than scrap value. That jar weighs about 1 kilo. The bolts one's a little bit heavier. So $5 a kilo is you know, almost copper price, and if they were all copper you'd certainly save them. So just a bit of an idea. You could probably set up a market stall and take a lot of jars of just hardware and screws and bits and pieces. You'd probably be quite amazed what actually sells. So there you go, just a bit of hidden value. Springs is another one. I didn't show you this. I've actually sold, every time I get a jar full of springs in the shop, and that's only a small size jar, every time they sell pretty well within a week. And a farmer or a hobbyist or someone will say, oh, it's always handy to have a spring for a little job. So there you go. Don't throw them in the scrap bin where you're getting only a few cents a kilo. Stick them in a jar, let them add up, and either take them to a market, have a garage sale, or you know what, if you're close to my shop, bring them in and I'll go your halves. It's a great way to make a few extra dollars. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll do a complete scrap out of a microwave soon. Just just to show where there's a lot of other unusual value rather than just your big transformer and your wiring and all your traditional scrap. So keep an eye on my channel. Thanks for watching. See you next time.